With the WINN FM News, I am Kevin Brown.
And I am Yolana Weeks.
Our top stories.
Loud calls made at St. Kitts and Nevis Labour Party's 2025 convention for Dr. Denzil Douglas to be knighted. Mary Shelford and Kayla Claxton eyes Regional Tourism Youth Congress title after succeeding at local congresses.
Police Commissioner James Sutton addresses misinformation and infrastructure challenges in the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force. Heavy rains test infrastructure resilience in St. Kitts and Nevis and neighbouring islands. CARICOM to participate in 78th World Health Assembly. Internationally, UK and European Union reach new trade deal on food, fishing, defence and passport checks. Now, the details.
Would the Right Honourable Dr. Denzil Llewellyn Douglas be knighted in 2026? The citizens and residents of St. Kitts and Nevis are on standby. During Prime Minister Dr. Terence Drew's very interactive address to the delegates at the 93rd Annual National Convention of the St. Kitts and Nevis Labour Party on May 19, 2025, the audience excitedly recommended that the former Prime Minister Dr. Douglas be knighted, backed by louder cheers and whistleblows.
I ask the Governor General, Her Excellency Dame Marcella Liebert, when is it will be St. Kitts and Nevis's turn for us to be able to bestow such an honor and a well-deserving citizen? And she confirmed to me that the year would be in 2026. My question to you tonight, if you think I have the opportunity to bestow such a high honor on a well-deserving citizen of St. Kitts and Nevis, who do you think that person should be? Comrades, I don't think you heard me well. Comrades, you have not heard me well. I can't hear you well. I can't hear you well. You have to stand up and say. You have to stand up and tell me so that I can hear it well. If the king, I have to write back to the king and to tell the king on which citizen I should recommend that high honor bestowed. Who do you think that person should be? 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 Comrades, I think that you're making a strong and correct recommendation tonight, and your recommendation to me will be taken very seriously. Comrades, I have heard you. Conference 2025 has heard you. You have made your strong recommendation, and therefore, as your humble servant, I have no choice but to take your recommendation in the highest regards.
The Right Honourable Dr. Denzil Douglas is the longest-serving Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis to date, serving from 1995 to 2015. He also served as the leader of the St. Kitts and Nevis Labour Party from 1989 to 2021 and leader of the parliamentary opposition from 2015 to 2022. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Drew said a conversation between him and King Charles III about knighting another citizen of St. Kitts and Nevis was had during his visit to the monarch's Sandringham estate in January 2025. So moved was he by the King's recollection of Sir Robert Bratcher's legacy, Prime Minister Drew said the service and sacrifice of the leaders should never be forgotten.
But it is a principle of labor. We must never, ever forget our leaders. We must always hold our leaders in the highest esteem, because they would have sacrificed, they would have given up themselves. And in true character of the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party, we never ever forget our people.
In two separate youth congresses, a decision was made on who would represent both St. Kitts and Nevis at the upcoming Caribbean Tourism Organization Regional Tourism Youth Congress. Miss Kayla Claxton of the Gingerlanders Secondary School won the Bank of Nevis Tourism Youth Congress held on Thursday, May 15 at the Nevis Performing Arts Center, succeeding Kiana Warner as Nevis's Junior Minister of Tourism. Miss Asia Liebert and Mitchell Borin from the Charlestown Secondary School placed second and third respectively. On May 16, the St. Christopher Air and Seaports Authority Tourism Youth Congress was held at the Royal St. Kitts Hotel. The winner of the competition was Mary Shelford, a student of the Immaculate Conception Catholic School. She succeeds Carrie Gonzalez as the Junior Minister of Tourism, St. Kitts. In second position was Kamira Williams of Verchilds High, and in third place was Ornique Finch of the Sadler Secondary School, who also captured the Best Presenter Award. The Tourism Youth Congress is designed to empower young minds and foster discussions about the future of Caribbean tourism. It features teens from high schools across the Federation who present innovative ideas and insights on various topics that impact Caribbean tourism. Both Mary Shelford and Kayla Claxton will vie for the Regional Youth Tourism Minister title later this year, which was won in 2024 by Nevis's Kiana Warner, a student of the Charlestown Secondary School.
In a statement issued on May 17, 2025, James Sutner, Commissioner of the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force, took time to clarify a variety of pressing issues currently affecting the Federation's security environment, concluding with a call for truth and responsible communication from the public. Commissioner Sutton began by underscoring the gravity of the misinformation in today's fast-paced information age. A central point of clarification involved rumors circulating about missing ammunition allegedly stored by the police. Commissioner Sutton categorically refuted these claims.
Firstly, with respect to the rumor of missing ammunition, I categorically state that no ammunition has ever gone missing from the police-operated cache. Since 2010, the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force Nevis Division has been storing ammunition on behalf of the St. Kitts and Nevis Customs and Excise Department. This long-standing arrangement worked efficiently. Ammunition was used by the police and replenished as necessary in accordance with operational needs. Although the brand of replacement rounds occasionally differed, the caliber of the ammunition remained the same. This has never posed a concern, nor will it ever. The storage arrangement was officially discontinued earlier in 2025 as it was no longer deemed necessary. The claim that any ammunition went missing is entirely false. Whoever introduced such a dangerous and malicious narrative into the public sphere has demonstrated a blatant and callous disregard for national security, public confidence, and our nation's reputation.
This firm rebuke highlights the delicate balance between maintaining public trust and safeguarding national security, particularly in an environment where social media and rapid information exchanges can fuel misinformation swiftly. Commissioner Sutton also announced a significant technological advancement to strengthen the force's accountability and operational efficiency.
Looking ahead, I am pleased to announce that the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force has taken decisive steps to modernize all firearm-related administrative processes. In keeping with the government's thrust towards digital transformation, the force has enlisted the services of a programmer to develop an integrated digital system for managing firearms. The new system will oversee the full spectrum of firearm processes, including civilian firearm license applications, police firearm and ammunition storage, and the recording of ammunition usage. When completed, this new development will mark a significant step forward in accountability and efficiency.
In addition to addressing operational matters, the Commissioner acknowledged long-standing infrastructural challenges faced by the police stations throughout the Federation, particularly noting that many facilities were in disrepair when he assumed office in February 2023.
When I assumed the role of Commissioner of Police in February 2023, I met widespread infrastructural deficiencies across most police facilities in St. Kitts and a few on Nevis. Without wasting any time, my High Command and I set to the monumental task of repairing, refurbishing, and in some cases, completely rebuilding the worst of our facilities. In 2 short years, I am pleased to announce that the construction of a brand new Charlestown police station is 1 month away from completion. Additionally, the construction of a new headquarters for the traffic department, which will be temporarily shared with the St. Kitts and Nevis Fire and Rescue Services, is nearing completion.
Several other police stations are undergoing upgrades, with particular attention paid to the persistent sewage issue at the Bastia Police Station.
The sewage issue at the Bastia Police Station, which is interconnected with His Majesty's Prison, remain one of our most pressing concerns. While regular servicing is undertaken by Waste Management Services, the aged infrastructure continuously presents numerous ongoing challenges. Given that the prison was constructed in 1840 during the British colonial period, a permanent solution may not come quickly and in truth may not be attainable. Nonetheless, I assure the public and more importantly, my officers, that every effort is being made on our part to mitigate this issue.
Commissioner Sutton expressed profound gratitude for the resilience of officers working under such difficult conditions. The Commissioner strongly appealed to the public regarding social media conduct and the importance of accuracy in information sharing.
I must also appeal to all users of social media to adopt a greater sense of national responsibility. In an age where information spreads rapidly, I urge all citizens to verify facts before sharing posts, comments, or messages. The harmful effects of misinformation are often not fully appreciated until one becomes the victim of such. It is in our best interests as a people, both individually and collectively, to strive to preserve the truth.
Emphasizing the force's commitment to impartial service and accountability, Commissioner Sutton reiterated that the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force serves all without fear or favor.
Let it also be known that the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force serves all members of the public without fear or favor and regardless of race, color, creed, or political affiliation. When a citizen calls for assistance, we are duty-bound to respond. Where members of the public feel that an officer has failed to perform this duty, there is not only a right but also a civic duty to report such conduct to the Forces Department of Professional Standards.
This department plays a crucial role in maintaining integrity within the force through thorough investigations and disciplinary measures.
The Department of Professional Standards is tasked with investigating administrative and procedural complaints made against police officers. Every week, internal tribunals are conducted where officers must account for their actions. Disciplinary measures include, but are not limited to, suspension, open arrest, salary deduction, and in some cases, referral to the Police Service Commission for dismissal. I take the matter of justice seriously, both within the force and in service to the wider public.
Commissioner Sutton reaffirmed his commitment to public safety and thanked the community for its ongoing cooperation. The statement from the Commissioner encapsulates the challenges and progress within the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force while reminding citizens of their essential role in fostering a safe and united society. The Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis and neighboring islands have experienced intense rainfall over recent days, posing significant challenges to infrastructure and daily life. Fortunately, the island of Nevis demonstrated remarkable resilience thanks to prior investments in critical infrastructure and effective government policies. Premier of Nevis, the Honourable Mark Brantley, highlighted the pivotal role of good governance and infrastructural improvements in mitigating the recent downpours. He wrote in a Facebook post, quote, "The recent heavy rains in Nevis provide a case study of how good government policies and a commitment to infrastructural improvement benefit our people. Through the engineering of our road networks, the investment in equipment, the training of our workers, the attention to proper drainage, the constant clearing of our guts and waterways, and the strengthening of water and electricity infrastructure, the island of Nevis has weathered the deluge without difficulty. Our water supply stayed on, our electricity supply stayed on, our roads were not flooded, our drainage systems worked well, our infrastructure remained intact." End quote. These remarks underscore that proactive measures, including regular maintenance and upgrading of roads, drainage systems, and utility infrastructures, paid off handsomely during this test of nature. The Honourable Spencer Brand, Minister of Public Works at the Nevis Island Administration, NIA, recently shared insights into specific projects to address chronic flooding issues. Speaking from the Brown Hill community, he noted,
"We are here in the Brown Hill area, in the area of the Wilkinson Road, where we have had some perennial flooding issues, and a number of neighbors here, property were continuously being flooded. We decided to come in and try and mitigate that flooding issue so we can bring some relief to the residents here in Brown Hill. Throughout 2025, one of the main goal and objective of the Public Works Department would be trying to deal with some of these drainage issues that we face within the various communities. This is a situation that we have throughout the length and breadth of the island, where a number of persons, a number of families continuously being flooded whenever we have heavy rain.
The Public Works Department's commitment to tackling drainage concerns across the island reaffirms the government's dedication to protecting residents from flooding hazards. Conversely, on St. Kitts, the torrential rain caused significant disruptions. Motorists faced harrowing conditions as the main road in Connery became heavily flooded, forcing vehicles to stall or drivers to wade through the waterlogged sections. Furthermore, the Robert L. Bradshaw International Airport experienced flooding, with numerous videos circulating on social media showing the extent of water accumulation on airport grounds. Such conditions underscore the ongoing need for sustained investment in drainage and flood mitigation infrastructure on St. Kitts. In Antigua, heavy rainfall overwhelmed drainage systems, flooding several major hotels, including Sandals Grand Antigua, Blue Waters Resort, and Royalton Chic. Guests posted videos online depicting waterlogged lobbies and compromised hotel operations. This regional impact underlines the island's vulnerability in the Eastern Caribbean to extreme weather events, particularly during the lead-up to hurricane season. With the approaching 2025 Atlantic hurricane season predicted to be above normal in activity, preparation remains paramount. The Caribbean Disaster Management Agency, CDEMA, has reiterated the importance of readiness and proactive measures to reduce vulnerability and enhance emergency response. Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, the Honorable Dr. Terence Drew, has emphasized ramping up preparedness activities as the season draws near. Notably, he announced the return of disaster simulations designed to test and strengthen the readiness of the health system, first responders, and communities in the face of potential hurricanes. Such drills are critical in ensuring that the Federation can respond swiftly and effectively to mitigate the impacts of storms forecasted for this year. In regional news,
special meeting yields significant progress for OECS food sovereignty. Grenadian appointed the first Caribbean Youth Ambassador for Intellectual Property. OECS Commission brings high-level economic and institutional strengthening workshop to the BVI. I am Claudia McDowell. Here are this week's stories. We start with a special meeting with the OECS Council of Ministers for Agriculture on May 2, 2025. The discussion centered around proactive steps to cultivate a sustainable agricultural future among member states. Ministers agreed that agricultural development must go beyond production increases. It requires a systems-based approach that incorporates transportation, packaging, standard support, and farmer assistance. Some major decisions included resilience and autonomy, agriculture and fisheries insurance schemes, scaling up sweet and white potato production, strategic partnerships with Africa to boost trade, and establishment of the OECS Food Sovereignty and Resilience Council. In our next story, we follow Rishi Caraib's coverage of Grenada's WINN. He was appointed by the World Intellectual Property Organization as the first Caribbean Youth Intellectual Property Ambassador. This appointment displays international recognition of Caribbean creativity. Grenada and the Caribbean will be represented in discussions on the protection of cultural works and the promotion of local talent. Vaughan is an accomplished soca artist and a recognized cultural ambassador in the region. Visit the OECS press room to read more. Before we move on, take a peek at the Calm Disaster Preparedness Fair in Micoud, St. Lucia on Sunday, May 4th. This was held by the OECS Climate and Disaster Resilience Unit, Mercy Corps, and NEMO St. Lucia. Participants viewed the impact of plastic pollution on the environment using virtual reality technology. The OECS Commission, in partnership with the Caribbean Development Bank, hosted a 5-day workshop in the British Virgin Islands titled Macro-Social Economic Analysis and Institutional Assessment. The workshop provided crucial tools for strengthening local capacity to analyze poverty, manage public institutions, and accelerate evidence-based development. This workshop was designed to empower public sector professionals to steer development in the BVI in a way that meets unique challenges. Learn more about this training and the OECS program it falls under, the Enhanced Country Poverty Assessment Program.
A delegation from the CARICOM Secretariat, headed by the Deputy Secretary General Dr. Armstrong Alexis, will participate in the 78th World Health Assembly, which will be held in Geneva, Switzerland during the period May 19th to 27th, 2025. The World Health Assembly is an annual meeting where the World Health Organization member states decide on key health policies. This year, the meeting will focus on critical global health issues, including the final draft of the pandemic agreement, human resources for health, combating antimicrobial resistance, addressing climate change impacts, and tackling non-communicable diseases. In addition to the main agenda, a caucus of CARICOM Ministers of Health and their head of delegations will convene in the margins of the Assembly to deliberate on priority areas for the Caribbean community and the 78th World Health Assembly agenda items of interest to the member states. The Secretariat remains fully committed to advancing these discussions and fostering regional solidarity in health diplomacy. We look forward to positive outcomes that will benefit our community and strengthen our collective resilience.
We now bring you these international reports.
Here in London, Sir Keir Starmer has said that Britain is back on the world stage as he unveiled a new deal with the EU alongside senior European officials at a summit. The agreement, aimed at resetting relations with the EU after Brexit, was hailed by the head of the European Council as a new chapter. Antonio Costa also describing the UK and the EU as neighbours, allies, partners and friends. While European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said today's agreement sent out a message to the world that in Europe we stick together. Let's take a look at what this agreement includes. There's a 12-year deal around fishing access for EU boats in UK waters. Confirmation there will be no increase in the amount of fish that EU vessels can catch. Some routine checks on animal and plant food products will be removed completely. That will allow goods to flow freely again, including between Great Britain and Northern Ireland. British tourists will be able to use more passport e-gates in Europe as well, and also agreement to cooperate further on a youth experience scheme that could see young people able to work and travel freely in Europe once again. There'll also be a new security and defence partnership. Watching it all for us unfold today from central London, where the summit has been held, is my colleague Regini Vajanathan. Regini.
Yeah, the proceedings now have wrapped up, Lucy, here at Lancaster House in central London. But make no mistake, whether you are pro or anti-Brexit, today has been a symbolic and an historic one. A number of deals, as you outlined there, that have been signed between the EU and the UK. And Sir Keir Starmer, in a news conference, taking questions afterwards, he was asked, is this backsliding away from Brexit, that kind of thing? Well, he said, no, this is all about moving forward. He used language that really was, in some ways, repetitive, but sending a similar message out. He's saying, we're moving forward, not backwards. He said, this is a new era. This is turning a page. And most of all, he said that Britain was back on the world stage, highlighting the fact, of course, that it's only been a few weeks since the UK signed an agreement on trade with the US and, of course, before that with India. Despite some criticism from opposition parties, Sir Keir Starmer said this was a good agreement today for all sides.
Today we have struck this landmark deal with the EU, a new partnership between an independent Britain and our allies in Europe. This is the first UK-EU summit. It marks a new era in our relationship. And this deal is a win-win. It delivers what the British public voted for last year. It gives us unprecedented access to the EU market, the best of any country outside of the EU or EFTA.
Well, as the Prime Minister and the UK government have been saying even before all of these deals were agreed and announced, to them this marks a reset moment for relations between the EU and the UK. And make no mistake, this does bring the EU and the UK closer together with these cooperation agreements, though it doesn't tear up much of the principles and agreements of Brexit. Well, Ursula von der Leyen, President of the EU Commission, said this was a new beginning for old friends. Let's have a listen to what she had to say at that news conference.
What we have agreed today is historic. It will make a real difference to people in the UK and across our union. But the message we are sending to the world today is equally, if not more important. It is a message that at a time of global instability and when our continent faces the greatest threat it has for generations, we in Europe stick together.
Ursula von der Leyen there. Well, we are getting some reaction from across the political spectrum. We've had some reaction from the leader of the Conservative Party, Kemi Badenoch. Shortly after those announcements, Ms Badenoch said she was gobsmacked by the series of deals that the Prime Minister signed. She said the deal on fishing, that we'll go into a bit more detail with my colleague Henry Zeffman in a moment, was a sellout. And she said that that has taken the UK back to square one. We should be using opportunities of leaving the European Union and not taking steps back. Now, she did welcome some news, though. She welcomed the news on e-gates when it comes to passports. So that now will give Britain's access to a separate lane now rather than the non-EU lane when they go overseas to Europe. And also there was some movement on pet passports. But she said she had concerns about what the UK had given away in concessions. Well, let's discuss a bit more about what we heard and what was agreed with our chief political correspondent, Henry Zeffman. Of course, this is a big moment, whichever way you look at it. But if we look back to Brexit 2016 and then, of course, 2020, when agreements were finally made for a UK post-Brexit, there was a lot of politics, a lot of emotion. How much of that existing deal has in reality been ripped up?
Well, the fundamentals of the UK's post-Brexit relationship with the EU are unchanged. Some of the earliest debates post-Brexit, and ultimately actually they were settled by Theresa May, not Boris Johnson, were would the UK remain part of the single market, yes or no? And the answer was no. Would the UK remain part of the customs union, yes or no? And the answer to that was no as well. Keir Starmer is not altering those fundamentals. But what he is doing within those parameters is trying to move much closer to the European Union. That is openly what he is trying to achieve here. The big ticket items today which amount to that growing closeness are about the UK following the same agricultural rules as the EU. That's designed to make it easier to import agricultural goods from the UK to the EU. And also that extension of fishing quotas, fishing rights for European vessels in UK waters for 12 years. That might prove quite controversial. Those are two fairly technical elements, but ultimately, as we learnt during the Brexit negotiation years, the post-Brexit relationship between the UK and the EU amounts to an accumulation of small technical details, which overall add up to a really important sense of what the relationship is.
Israel has agreed to allow limited amounts of food into Gaza, easing a 2-month-old blockade that has brought the enclave to the brink of famine. But airstrikes killed at least 20 Palestinians overnight after Israel announced extensive ground operations. Casualties arrived at a hospital in Khan Yunis on Monday. Palestinian health officials say more than 500 people have been killed in attacks in the past 8 days, as Israel has stepped up its military campaign, bringing the toll of Palestinians killed in its ground and air war to more than 53,000. Israel has faced mounting international pressure over the blockade on humanitarian deliveries it imposed in March, shortly before it broke a 2-month-old ceasefire. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Israel aimed to take control of all of Gaza and prevent Hamas militants from looting aid shipments. Hamas has denied involvement in looting. Warehouse containing medical supplies for Nasser Hospital in Khan Yunis was also hit. Hospital director Atif Al-Hout asked how long the world would remain silent.
Today, the stock of medical solutions for patients and the stock of solutions for kidney dialysis patients are being targeted. This quite simply means that kidney dialysis patients are being sentenced to death.
Separately, residents and medics said an Israeli undercover unit who disguised themselves as displaced people killed a militant leader in a raid in the south. Residents said the commander, Ahmad Sarhan, clashed with the force before he was killed. and that the Israelis detained his wife and children before retreating in a bus under cover of fire from the air. Israel's military has announced a campaign dubbed Operation Gideon's Chariots, seeking to eliminate Hamas's military and governing capabilities and bring back the remaining hostages it holds. Senior Hamas official Sami Abu Zuhri said the escalating offensive would put the lives of the hostages at risk. And both sides reported no progress in a new round of indirect talks between Israel and Hamas in Qatar.
President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin have both been reacting positively after they spent 2 hours talking on the phone. It comes as Washington continues to push to end the fighting in Ukraine. The American leader has posted on social media about the talks. He said he believes the call went very well, adding that Russia and Ukraine will immediately start negotiations towards a ceasefire and, more importantly, bring an end to the war. He went on, the tone and spirit of the conversation were excellent, before adding that Russia wants to do large-scale trade with the United States when this catastrophic bloodbath is over. And I agree. Let's go straight to our correspondent at the White House, Nomia Iqbal. Nomia, just to be clear, first of all, we're talking here about negotiations about a ceasefire, not negotiations exactly about ending the war permanently.
That's correct. And there's no breakthrough, I would say, in those peace negotiations. And I would say that President Trump portrayed this conversation more positively than Vladimir Putin did. He talked about possible future peace agreements. Donald Trump said that he said that, as you mentioned there, the conversation was warm and friendly. But he focused a lot more on the economic benefits that might be in store for Russia and Ukraine when the war ends. Essentially, what it sounds like is President Trump is saying it's up to both sides to work it out and essentially come up with the conditions for a negotiation, for a ceasefire, and ultimately to end the war. And it's up to them to decide. And so it's not really the US walking away. It sounds like they will continue to push both sides to work it out. But ultimately, he's letting them decide. And that's where I think there is that huge challenge, because we know that there are things that Russia will not concede on, and there are things that Ukraine will not concede on. Mr. Trump did say that he has informed President Zelensky as well as other key allies, including the European Commissioner, about the phone conversation. But as I say, there was no major breakthrough in that conversation, and I don't think there was expected to be.
Well, the Russian leader has also been speaking about that conversation. President Putin said it was, in his words, very informative and quite a frank talk. Take a listen.
We agreed with the President of the United States that Russia will propose and is ready to work with the Ukrainian side on a memorandum regarding a possible future peace treaty, outlining a number of positions, such as the principles of resolution, the timeline for a potential peace agreement, and so on, including the possible cessation of hostilities for a certain period in the event of reaching specific agreements.
A short time ago, I spoke to our Russia editor, Steve Rosenberg, in Moscow, and he gave us his reaction to what we have heard about the Russian side of this phone call.
It doesn't seem as if much has changed. Remember, America, European leaders and Ukraine had been pushing Russia to sign up to a 30-day unconditional ceasefire. Russia hasn't done that. Russia has been resisting that all along, and still after this conversation there's no talk about a ceasefire now. However, Mr. Putin's press secretary Dmitry Peskov, after Vladimir Putin's comments, said, I think in an attempt to flatter Donald Trump, talked about how Russia saw America as a neutral party now and basically blamed Europe for wanting the war to continue, trying to drive a wedge between America and Europe and trying to flatter Donald Trump.
Steve Rosenberg in Moscow. Well, we're joined now by Daniel Byman, who is the director of the Warfare, Irregular Threats and Terrorism Programme at the think tank, the Centre for Strategic and International Studies. Daniel, thank you very much for joining us on BBC News to talk about this developing story. From what you've heard, the readout from Russia and the US, what are your thoughts?
There's a lot of very vague words and promises. So seems to be an effort to work toward a ceasefire. There could be some sort of memorandum, but any of the content, any of the principles remains very unclear. And given how far apart the two parties were before the phone calls, I'm not sure how much closer we are now, despite all the rhetoric.
Yeah, one of my Russian-speaking colleagues here in the newsroom sent me a message saying that there is a saying in the Russian language, we negotiate to negotiate. On hopes for a ceasefire, this seems to be, stretching out with no specific time frame at the moment. Yet we know that President Trump is very impatient. So where do you think that's going to lead to?
So one of Russia's hopes is that President Trump will get tired of the whole thing and simply say that the United States is not going to be involved anymore. And this would be an end of economic aid and end of military aid to Ukraine. So, of course, that benefits Russia. So I think Putin probably calculates that inaction and delay on his part is going to help Russia's position in the long term, especially if Russia is not the one blamed for any problems.
And we're waiting to hear still from President Zelensky. It's the obvious person that we're still waiting to hear from after these conversations, these discussions, this phone call between President Trump and President Putin. Militarily, Daniel, what position are Ukraine and Russia in right now with regards to prosecuting this war, continuing this war?
So Russia has been making progress against Ukraine in the last 10 months, but it's very slow, really incremental progress at best. Russia has taken staggering losses. So although many people describe Russia as having the upper hand, and that's probably true, the actual military advantage it's gained has been quite slight. So we're not likely to see dramatic changes on the battlefield in the coming months, unless, of course, we see an abandonment of Ukraine by its allies, in which case Ukraine runs out of ammunition and in general may suffer catastrophic loss.
So are you saying at the moment Russia doesn't see any strategic interest in a ceasefire?
Russia believes that Ukraine's going to crumble if it keeps hitting it, and especially if the United States and Europe abandon it. So a ceasefire, especially a long-term one, is probably not in Russia's interest, according to how Putin defines it.
You were listening to the WINN FM 98.9 newscast. Our top stories were:
loud calls made at St. Kitts and Nevis Labour Party's 2025 convention for Dr. Denzel Douglas to be knighted. Mary Shelford and Kayla Claxton eyes Regional Tourism Youth Congress title after succeeding at local congresses.
Police Commissioner James Sutton addresses misinformation and infrastructure challenges in the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force. Heavy rains test infrastructure resilience in St. Kitts and Nevis and neighboring islands. CARICOM to participate in 78th World Health Assembly. Internationally, UK and European Union reach new trade deal on food, fishing, defense, and passport checks.
Thank you for listening.